work on things. And that was that. As opposed to now, I have a very, and it's a little bit long and it takes patience, but I force myself to do it because everything is coming out better, where I almost treat it like a console where I push faders up. I don't have faders, I use a mouse, but
yeah,
I push faders up one at a time and I get one. I literally mix it without a single plugin on. Reverbs I add in after that, and then I'll kind of EQ out. Then I'll go through everything and be like, okay, the snare has like this little ring, the guitar tone has a little bit too many low mids, so I'll do the corrective EQs, and then after that, I'll almost do all my automation at that stage.
Oh wow!
So it's an actual mix. But then I'll be like, okay, the guitars are taking too much space. So now I'll do a little bit more EQ and compression or limiting. I want the vocals to sit better. So that's when, but all the levels stay the same. You know, I'm adjusting the makeup gains. So my mix is there. It's polishing it.
Brilliant. And there's no template for this at all. Not even signal routing.
Well, signal routing, yeah. I mean, I have a set of buses set up, you know, that's already pre-done.
Yeah.
So I just, you know, I have a bunch of empty aux tracks on, at least in Pro Tools, that's how I do it. Set up with, you know, and I'll just fly them up and quickly change the inputs. I guess I could create a template for that, but I just find that sometimes I don't even want to use them. So I kind of leave every song. It's not even so time consuming, because they're right there. I'll just fly them up, and then a lot of times I want to mess around with a reverb or parallel compression, and sometimes I won't even want to use it. So I let that be an impulsive creative decision as opposed to you know, something that like, oh yeah, because I do this on every mix. Amazing.
Do you do anything else to work faster or get inspired quicker?
So in terms of mixing, that's I do that process, and it's definitely not faster, but the results are much better. For the creative process and writing and just getting an idea, I love Easy Drummer, believe it or not, just because all you need is like that one groove, and I'll spend, I think, on either my own songwriting productions or clients, just finding different drum grooves. I'm not a drummer, so when I hear a groove that's like, yes, that's what I want, you know, I can start from there, because once I have the drum groove down, like, then I can go where I want the bass to go, and then I can figure out the guitar rhythm. So I'll do that a lot. I actually listened to you, was it with Ami Kozak, your thing?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so Ami uses Output, also Arcade, right? I'm a big fan of that. I've probably started, I don't know, at least in my own songs, or like 5 to 10 of my own songs with Arcade, just with a loop or just like one thing from there, and then I'll build. So yeah, those are like my quick start things, or the things that get me jump started.
Amazing. Do you have any other favorite creative tools in the studio?
You know, believe it or not, I start everything on piano, even though I cannot play. So I just find it's easier to come up with, like, I'm very stuck in guitar. I've been playing guitar like my whole life. So, you know, I tend to go the same places, and for some reason piano kind of does that and
gets you out of your box in your brain. And
yeah. I mean, like, a lot of times it also will start from the sound, like, just different. There are so many different, like, synth plugins that, like, you just get that one idea. Like, I wrote a song recently called With Fire, and I think it was on Omnisphere, where I just pulled up a piano track that sounded like it was burning. Like it was a piano on fire, and I was just like, ooh, you know?
Wow.
That. So, yeah, I mean, so, you know, I get a lot of ideas from just messing around with sounds, like Nexus, Omnisphere. Slate has a new one called A&A, which is really, really cool. And I think that's a lot. Yeah, so I love that stuff.
So is there anything that you do specifically in your productions that you think gives you a trademark sound?
A lot of my clients rely on me for my guitar work on their tracks. So I do have a very consistent, and I guess signature sound when it comes to doing guitar production. I actually played a wedding last night, and a guy came over to me about a song that a bunch of his friends did by me, and they released it. And he was talking to me. He's like, "Oh, there's this spot about the guitar thing, like over there." And, in a way, I think what I do on guitar, that's where I'm most creative. Once I have the song laid out, I can really mess around. I know I've gotten a lot of clients in the door because they've heard what my overall production sound is fairly consistent, but they've heard like what I do guitar wise, and that kind of draws it in. I'm not the world's most technical or best guitar player, but I learned a lot from working with real pros how to, record, not necessarily sounds wise, but to make ear candy with guitar. And it's really worked well.
That's amazing. Can you talk a little bit about your philosophy of recording guitars, both electric and acoustic?
Acoustic, I usually use one mic because I'm double tracking them. Depends on the mic that I'm using, but I try and go for a bit of the warmer sound, so I'm closer towards the sound hole as opposed to even the 12th fret, because I find if I need to cut out some of that boominess, I'll do that later. Sometimes I like having that full range in the mix, and then sometimes if I need to, scoop it out, I'll cut it out. Electric guitars, everything is DI. It's either with my atomic amplifier pedal board. I love the sounds I get on there. Or lately, I've been using TuneTrack's Easy Mix. They have some killer electric guitar presets that I've been tracking it on everything lately. I don't even take my pedal board out of my car now.
I've heard of the Easy Mix like once before, like this conversation. So who knew?
Yeah, I don't use the Easy Mix stuff sometimes I use it for effects because they have some cool presets that have like effects I never would have thought of. I don't use it necessarily for like big rock vocal. But their guitar sounds their amp simulations I absolutely love.
Wow. Okay, cool. Hot tip. And in terms of like playing the guitar, is there anything, how do you come up with like your guitar parts?
Well, obviously everything that has to suit the song.
Yeah. It's
a lot of trial and error, and it's also a lot of what I know works for my past productions. So while I don't want every song to sound the same, at the same time, I know a lot of my clients came to me because they heard this song and they really liked it and they liked the guitar work. So I kind of leave certain ideas to be similar and then kind of make it unique to that song. I do a lot of guitar layering. In the mix, I take a lot of it out. But I do a lot of guitar layering just to start the track and to create like this very full sound. And then in the mix, I'll kind of like, okay, I'm going to mute that in the verses and mute that here and kind of build it from there. But I really I spend a lot of time just, trial and error.
Amazing. So before we started recording, you mentioned to me that you're about to release your first real single in a while, and you've been preparing for it. Can you tell the audience a little bit about what you've learned and what you're implementing with your upcoming release now, here, 2019?
Sure. Well, the first thing was, as just on the production and music side of it, before even the release side, is that I learned as my own artist, sometimes it's best to go elsewhere for production. And the same way, like I was saying earlier in our discussion, that people are coming to me for what I do. Sometimes for your own music, and this is what I found with this song, it's best to go to someone else who has a level of expertise that's a little bit beyond you and that knows how to achieve the sounds that you want to achieve. That you like. I know my level of expertise and my level of ability up till here. Mm-hmm. And then there are guys that know how to do this, or there are so many talented engineers and producers out there. So I actually went to a different producer who recorded everything. He played all the guitars, which was, surprisingly not a big deal to me.
Yeah, it sounds like you have to keep your ego in check at a certain point, to make something like that work.
During the mix, I know I was a giant pain because the song was a big deal to me. But I mean, the final product I'm extremely, extremely happy with. And the producer's name is Taylor Larson. He's out in Maryland. Incredible engineer, producer, guitar player, etc. So that's one level. In terms of preparing for the release, I'm a very big believer, especially nowadays, that you can't just throw a song up on Spotify and expect it to gain traction. So we're shooting a music video on Thursday for this track. I've been hyping this song now for over a month. It's not coming out for another 20-something days, 23 days. So I officially submitted it to Spotify, with a release date of November 28th, but I already submitted it to all their editorial playlists. So that way, they have plenty of an advance notice to try and get it onto as many of the individual Spotify playlists. And I'm also looking into, I have friends who are musicians and, producers and guys who are releasing stuff, and they post like, oh, I got this on this Spotify playlist, and I'm literally taking down names of people who they posted, who created these lists. So as soon as like my thing is live, I'm sending it out to all these playlists, because the more playlists you're on that have 200 to 15,000 subscribers, you'll get streams, you'll get attention. And also just doing a very heavy social media push. People have been bugging me to release my own music again for a long time. So I've been doing a lot of teasing the song. I had, I posted up on my Instagram stories and my WhatsApp statuses about helping me choose a cover, between one or two options, and fantastic, of course. It's great. I had hundreds of responses, really.
Wow.
But it was like 50-50. I was like, thanks, guys. You couldn't just decide on one, But, it's great because...
But you get some engagement there, so that's cool.
That was the goal. That was really, really the goal. Like, to just get people excited about the track. And people are actually coming over to me here in New York, and they're like, oh, we cannot wait to hear this song. And I'm really excited to do it. So hopefully with the video and everything, it's going to be a successful track. I worked really hard on it.
Amazing. Well, we're looking forward to hearing it, and when it's live, I'll add it to the show notes.
Awesome. Yeah, please do.
So tell me a bit about your current studio setup. What does it look like? How are you running things?
So I use Pro Tools. I use an Apogee Ensemble as my interface and converters, etc. It's I've been using it for years. I love it. Super, just a clean interface. I don't really use their pre's. I have an Avalon 737 that I use for mostly my other artists. It's a fantastic preamp, channel strip. For myself, I happen to love the Universal Audio LA610, so I have that pretty much just for me.
Oh, wow. You don't let other people use it?
No, I do. If there's a vocalist I find that it'll sound good on, I'll obviously use what's best for the voice. Happens to be, I like the Avalon for most vocalists. It's super clean and punchy. There's just something about the LA610 and my voice that kind of just works really well. I've tried the Avalon. It sounds amazing on my voice too, but the LA610 just brings out certain qualities to it. Mm-hmm. I've been using it I've had this preamp for over 10 years. Like I can't imagine tracking without it.
Wow. Yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it with my own two eyes.
Yes, yeah, it's the same exact one. I've had to have it, worked on at some point. And then believe it, I'm a big fan of running mixes through things. 'Cause there's something about going out of digital for a minute. I used to have a stereo bus compressor, which I really regret selling, because I had the TK Audio SSL style compressor that I used to just run all my mixes through, and eventually I got to buy another one because I love that thing. Mm-hmm. But recently I gave into hype, and I bought the SSL Fusion. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's like, I think it's one of the hottest like new gear things in the last year, where it's a color box, but it has like some vintage drive settings, a very 2-band EQ, kind of like highs and lows, but it's got a compressor specifically on the highs. Uh-huh. So it can tame like some of your high end frequencies that may just be jumping out a bit, and it makes it super, super smooth and even. And then it's got like a space wideness thing that is really, really cool. You have to handle it with care, because I've actually run mixes through it. And then my vocal, which was super up front and nice in the middle, has actually kind of taken a side step to the sides. So it does, I think it just kind of brings up the sides a bit more. So I've actually had to kind of use like wave center to bring up the middle a little bit, but it still gets the effect. and yeah, it has inputs for like, if you wanted to use like an outboard compressor after that, like it's a very cool piece of gear. And I basically, before mastering, I'll send it out. I'll send it through the Fusion. I just find analog gear gives a different quality to